Oh, welcome to the Press Play Northwest podcast. I'm Bruce Poinsett.
And I'm Donovan Smith.
And I'm Molly Mitchell.
Yeah, and you're tuned in to Press Play Northwest, the first edition of our podcast, and your destination for deep dives into Northwest hip hop's most provocative visuals. Yeah, how's everyone doing today?
Doing pretty good, today has been like just going a million miles a minute type of thing. Just head down doing some kind of back end work for, what's happening out in the streets right now. So that's been good, but, stressful. For sure.
Yeah. How you doing, Molly?
Yeah, I'm doing all right and hanging in, trying to figure out where to be successful.
Yeah, for everyone watching, the struggles are real. There's a lot of people on Zoom right now, a lot of Wi-Fi traffic. So bear with us. I'll just ask myself, Bruce, how are you doing? I am tired, just trying to do my part to help, Black suburban Oregon Voltron form. It's been like a little interesting phenomenon right now where it's just like you see all these stories pop up either in the Oregonian, like Willamette Week, all the many pamphlet papers, and it's just like you're getting this like informal directory of like the Black people doing things. Not all, because there's a lot of people who are doing stuff that are not getting covered in the news, as always. But there's like this weird kind of informal directory forming like throughout the state. So, kind of interested to see where that goes because power in numbers. Anyways, today, what we're going to be doing is a little version of, if you're familiar with our live show, we watch music videos, have little discussions. So we're just going to be exploring some of the videos we've explored in the live discussion and sharing those conversations with you. And first up is going to be Raz Simone, Drake, and Macklemore's Platform, because maybe you've been watching the news, but things are happening in Seattle, and this video's kind of relevant to that. So we're going to watch that and be back with you in just a moment. And welcome back. So, we just watched Raz Simone's video, Drake and Macklemore's Platform. And just to, head off some questions, because some people might be watching this and thinking, Bruce, Donovan, Molly, Raz Simone is literally in the news now with Fox News calling him a quote-unquote warlord. He's released a video where he's very recently driving around, called They Don't Understand, where he's, driving around the city, throwing money, spraying a flamethrower, talking about some of the stuff that's happening in Seattle right now. So why are you talking about a video from 5 years ago? And to that, I would say, I think it's, one, interesting to see like the culmination of a lot of the elements of both the project it came from, which was Macklemore privilege and Chief on Key violence, and specifically in that song, when you look at both the sort of the Tupac interview quotes in there, and kind of what Raz is talking about, which we can get into like the juxtaposition or perceived juxtaposition of those things in a little bit. But I guess just to start, should we catch the people up on what's happening in Seattle if they haven't been following?
Yeah, we can all kind of fill in the blanks together, but up there in Seattle, there's what is being debated upon between either being called the Chaz or the Chop, but it's a Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or Capitol Hill, what is it? Something
occupied protest, I want to say.
Right. and there's political reasons for naming it one or the other, but either way, it's a kind of 6-block radius of people just taking over the city for themselves. So that started about a week ago, after like the police seemingly like left the precinct open, and so the people decided to take it over, and then take over that neighborhood. And for anybody not familiar with that part of the Seattle, it's actually like kind of a artsy place. Definitely a queer-centered neighborhood up there. I feel like it's kind of akin to like the Alberta district in Portland, in a lot of ways, but it has its own identity for sure. But yeah, people have been taking it over, and they're having like live music there, and people are selling their wares, and having discussion about what justice is supposed to look like in the city. And as much as they have walls, which are really just like these little barricades, they're pretty much letting anybody in and saying, come in, do your thing. The way it's being kind of broadcasted, though, especially by like right-wing media, is like you would think the city is on fire, and you would think that all the war is happening within CHOP, when it's really just like they're putting a lot of fuel to the fire, feeding their base, and making it a more dangerous place for the people living inside, because the people like Raz, who are kind of in de facto leadership positions right now of CHOP, just to kind of hold things down, are forced into protecting themselves. And sometimes when you're protecting yourself, you're gonna hold a gun, especially when you have thousands of death threats coming, like Raz has said he has, coming in right now.
Yeah. For those, again, haven't been following, Raz has been doing some organizing down there, and I think apparently Tucker Carlson and some other people at Fox decided he was like their perfect what's the word, symbol for everything that scares their audience. So they literally called him a quote unquote warlord.
Not just a warlord.
Oh,
African warlord.
African, African socialist warlord. Right. And so, it's funny. I was, obviously I'm, a Raz Simone fan. I've, has a lot of videos, interesting music. So I was just searching on YouTube over the weekend, and as opposed to like seeing his videos when you first like search it, now you start seeing these like weird, fake Alex Jones type conspiracy videos about Raz and his gang harass people on the streets of Seattle. Raz and his gang patrol the street. Like, it's wild. It's wild. Actually, yeah, Molly, I'm kind of interested because you're, currently on the other side of the country. But have you been seeing some of the, some of this coverage at all?
I've been seeing just a little bit here and there. I think because I'm closer to New York, I've been seeing a lot more coverage of kind of the protests in New York, and how those have been going down. But I'm very interested in what's happening in Seattle and what those who are trying to kind of hold the line in their zone there are having to deal with, and what it looks like to kind of reimagine how we hold each other accountable, how we engage with each other.
Right. I think you were sharing something with us the other day. It was like, what was it, Fox News falls for like an old Monty Python joke with Seattle.
Yeah, I think somebody said that, you don't just appoint a king, they must be democratically elected, and they had the whole line, and Fox News bought it hook, line, and sinker, and absolutely thought that was what was really happening there, that somehow like Raz was like duly elected, or whatever, as a part of this, movement. And I think he's just one of many leaders, sharing his voice, sharing his ability to kind of like engage with folks and engage with crowds. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is like, not that probably a lot of people who would tune into this need convincing about what fake or Fox News isn't and is, but like just the fact that, you know, they are so much a part of the crowd that rallies people around fake news, that, you know, they reported that, you know, and then they also have been reporting, you know, using fake pictures, Photoshop pictures of people holding guns. Like one guy was several pictures where they had him in the same pose, holding a gun, saying that he was supposed to be like holding the fort down. So they've just been doing like terrible reporting, just, you know, for the sake of trying to criminalize the area and justify what I think is, you know, getting the president and the administration to enact war on the people who are in there, since the local government is more or less cooperating with the people in that area. And, you know, I don't know what the full-on conversation looks like day to day, but I have heard that they're, you know, having conversations around food exchange, having conversations, you know, Raz is having, and I imagine with other people having conversations with the police chief and all those people. So it's not like this is just like a full-on succession, but that's even how it's being characterized as like a full-on succession. And when you're doing that, then you can kind of position it almost as if anything that they're doing is like, you know, so criminal that they should be removed. You can't have a time. I think, you know, I've been tuned into some of his live streams, and the reason he's been so gung-ho about like not saying it's autonomous is because he's like, this is part of the United States. You know, we're not saying we're a different country or anything like that, because that language has like political consequences to it. So yeah, it's all very interesting. I know in Portland, people are, you know, are having conversations about an autonomous zone. I know other governments have said they don't want an autonomous zone to be set up. I know as early as today, you know, people, or late last night, people had tried to set one up at the, you know, in the mayor's neighborhood in downtown in the Pearl neighborhood, and that got shut down by the police pretty early. It didn't last very long, but the mayor, when he was being interviewed, like cleaning with the people that he was neighbors with, were like, he was essentially saying, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. And basically saying people need to stay peaceful and blah, 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 blah. And
yeah, the people are like, you know, you were talking about someone like Raz is just like live streams where he's just walking, you know, walking through a soccer field. I was watching one the other day, just, you know, walking through a soccer field, walking around, you know, people, again, selling their wares, conversing. There's like, you walk by, like, there's like a community, you know, community conversation space where, you know, they're talking about some of the issues Donovan was describing before. And it's just like, it's a peaceful, like, it's, you know, like, I don't want to call it like social justice Coachella because it's like a lot more significant than that. But like, it is a really, you know, it's a real peaceful zone. Like, there's, again, kind of like Donovan said, like, the only people bringing the tension are outside. It's like certain media outlets trying to fuel a fire, police or other city members who, you know, still not with it. But also, I think it's important to point out like why these attacks are happening, because, or attacks on them, like, for the media, are happening because they're effective. Like, they just got, you know, in Seattle, in large part because of this, they just banned, let's see what it say. Yeah, the city bans tear gas and expelled the police union. And like that, you know, especially the latter, like tear gas, banning tear gas is huge too. But I think it's a little bit an easier bridge to cross for a lot of, you know, city government than expelling a police union, which is, you know, you're talking about some of the most powerful forces throughout the country in terms of just laundering and enforcing white supremacist power structures, it's police unions. So, like, when people tell you, you know, this doesn't work or this is, what's the point? They're destroying everything. They're not. But, you know, this is why. And, you know, you got external forces trying to bring the wrath of God on them for being effective. But I just want to take it before we get into the next video, just talk about this one real quick because we kind of just talking about current events. And I think what's kind of interesting with Drake and Macklemore's platform is you have these Tupac quotes about, you know, really about what's happening right now, of like just this concentrated wealth and power and greed of it. And like the people aren't going to, you know, at some point the people are going to revolt. At some point, like it's not sustainable. And that's kind of intermixed with, you know, Raz, if you hear it, it's one of those things I had to take a few listens of to like kind of put them together, because on the surface level, we kind of had this when we had our conversation about it, however many months ago, with sort of the larger group, is that, you know, if you're just listening to it, it might sound kind of like crass and like have nothing to do with the protest stuff. But when you really look at it, it's about purpose. It's like he's talking about, you know, fake relationships. He's talking about all like superficial stuff that kind of comes simply like in the music industry, but also just like in these spaces. And he keeps talking about like, act like I'm not here. Like act, you know, like I'm here for a real purpose. All this other stuff doesn't matter. I'm building up for what effectively, like if we're looking at it in real time right now, he was talking about building up for this moment. And we're here right now. And this is what it looks like. This is why. So I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting to me, just like we're watching the culmination of, you know, like we kind of get like really maybe almost overly spiritual when we talk about this, or like it's the prophecy, it's the proclamation, but like it kind of is. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, definitely him standing on the foundation of what he's put in the music, in a lot of ways. And I know you and I have talked about like in a lot of ways, this is like he embodies a lot of the same spirit of like Nipsey, you know, and like what he was standing for in that community, and like empowering the folks that were there. I feel like if LA had a similar revolt, you know, Nip would be doing a lot of the same things Raz is doing up there right now. But yeah, you know, just community protection, you know, and even the fact that he, you know, is analyzing the situation, and again, I imagine this is like the collective of people. It's not just him, but seeing that like the government wanted to say, oh, well, would you like to just have this building that's in the neighborhood? Like we could make this a community center or something, and then like rejecting it and saying no, you know, and that leading to like the actual fruit, which is like, no, we need that police union out. You know, those are the type of like, when you're talking about revolution, like revolutionary thought, those are like truly, you know, systemic changes like you were talking about. If you're talking about systemic changes, it won't come through a building alone, you know, and it won't come through just like one piece of art, and it won't just come through like, you know, incremental changes in terms of how you fund police, you know, and it won't come through a body cam, you know, it'll still ultimately get somebody off. You can literally see somebody die through a body cam, and because of the protections of these unions, it'll be what it is. And it's sometimes not even the unions. It's just like the way white supremacy, you know, it plays with you. It'll make you think something happened, or try to tell you something happened that didn't happen when you saw it happen. So yeah, I think that I didn't even know that had happened with their union, but that's powerful. And I think those are the threats that, I'm going to say the right for now, but just like a lot of these people are actually afraid of is that it's standing on a foundation. It's not standing on just like, obviously you're going to have different points of views coming in when you have like, they didn't plan to take that place over. It didn't come with like a specific strategy and a specific point of view. And I think they're trying to work all those things out, but there is a foundation of we want systemic change. And, the kind of dumb arguments that I listen to a lot of the Foxes and the Candace Owens and the Tommy Lawrence, just so I can hear what they're talking about. Like I like to stay tuned. Sometimes it's my own form of comedy. But yeah, the arguments are not system based. They're just like, let me see what I can throw out. Oh, the real problem is parents in the household. Oh, they've got millions of guns. Did you listen to his rap song? I didn't like that one. I didn't like the way the bass was going on that song. So, yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah, it is funny that one thing about like trying to like single out Raz, just because we kind of talked about this, like you kind of have to do like a scavenger hunt. Like if you're just like looking through his catalog of videos to find one where he's not just with a lot of guns. So, it's almost like he was like ready made for just like the Fox News spin treatment. But on the other hand, like if you're looking at like that audience and they're obviously white supremacy and their love of the Second Amendment hits a point. We know that with the Black Panthers, but I am kind of interested to see how that goes. But also, I think you kind of pointed out something about like systems and like models and like templates that are out there. And like we're seeing some of them being created in real time. And I kind of want to turn this to Molly. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this beforehand. So, right, just going to throw this on you. But I know you've been like involved with like some of the Poor People's Campaign stuff. And I think something that's been interesting to me right now is like, obviously it's still super active, but like, I feel like I should be seeing William Barber on like everything right now. And it feels like I'm not. Is that just my perception?
It could be. He's definitely out there a lot because this coming Sunday, we're recording this on June 18th, and this coming Saturday and Sunday is kind of the big culmination, the virtual mass meeting. This weekend would have been a mass demonstration in Washington, D.C. They had been calling for this for at least a couple of years, and it would have been this weekend, but they've moved everything virtual due to coronavirus. And I think they only have a very small, just like one video, what's it called?
Mm-hmm.
Thing.
Yes.
Kind of hyping that up. And so, yeah, I know that he has been, not traveling as much, obviously, for coronavirus reasons and things. But you will be seeing some of the mass movement will be live streamed, I think, all weekend. I think there's 3 separate times that they'll be speaking out and showing how all of these things are interconnected. One of the things I really love about the Poor People's Campaign and what William Barber and Liz Theo-Harris are both doing with that movement is talking about these interconnections of militarism and police violence and racism and environmental destruction and poverty, and how they're all very much linked and very much we're like that. There's plenty of folks that are here saying that we're not going to stand for those things, and that we can connect and we can rise up and connect and really make a dent. Maybe more than make a dent. Maybe it's time for the revolutionary kind of praxis that Donovan was just talking about. where it isn't just okay to say like these small reforms, we'll take whatever these small reforms are. But the fact that we have 44 million people prior to coronavirus and the tanking of our economy, 44 million people were living at or below the poverty line, is just an absurd number. And it's only obviously getting worse, with millions of people becoming unemployed, with no hope of getting necessarily those jobs back, and our economy absolutely going in a direction we've never seen before.
Yeah. So again, go ahead.
I want to say this again too. Like, even though because we're in this point, like the amount of like by chance perfect storm that happened for us to see this type of change, like, it's unfortunate, like that these many things have to play for like the world to move at scale and, pay attention to Black folks, issues, because this wouldn't have happened without coronavirus. Yes, the video, which I am not going to watch. I've stopped watching Black people getting killed by police about 5 years ago or so. Stop that shit. Sorry, I know we're not supposed to cuss. But if this came out during the normal kind of news cycle, it may have been an issue that, people who care and people who tend to go out into the streets would have demonstrated about, but we wouldn't see the massive movement around disbanding if it wasn't for the coronavirus, if it wasn't for millions of people being unemployed, if it wasn't for like even the person we have as president. I think if we had like somebody who was a little bit more moderate, that maybe even people wouldn't be taken to the streets in the way that they are. Like, I think there's a lot of things that had to have kind of happened, systemically, that, and then people just getting like $1,200 to hold them through how many months has it been now? And just having very little aid, and then, seeing the flip of the data where at one point we were saying, oh, like Black people can't get the coronavirus, to seeing like Black people are being decimated by the coronavirus, and then seeing how the systems aren't mobilizing even locally, right? You got from your TriMets to your governments to none of them were mobilizing with the urgency of like how you would for yourself about your own life when these things happen. So it's an unfortunate thing, that it took all this, plus 400 years. But we're here, and it is encouraging at the same time that we are at least having some mobilization. The thing is to make sure that it continues, and we don't take the building, that we take the union. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, to that point, like, history is unfortunate. At the same time, like, history is also just full of any successful revolution or any successful toppling of power is almost always the confluence of, I say this on, like, I know words, so, but the confluence of a bunch of factors, like, they were able to take down Rome because the Visigoths like cut off the ports and starved the people for a long time and made it crazy to the point where they begged them to come in and effectively take over. And it's like, or any of our CIA-backed overthrows of governments throughout the world are just like years and years of pushing all these different buttons and waiting for the right ruler or the right dictator to mess up and come in. So again, you're right. It is unfortunate. It's also, I don't know. Yeah, time for opportunity, I guess, in the unfortunateness. So hopefully, hopefully we're there. I know we're all three of us are trying to do our part and moving that forward. But Yeah. So should we move to happier things?
Yeah, let's
Like
do it.
gentrification and economic despair. Uh, yeah. So our next video we're going to get into is "Bus Max Walk" by Slick Devious, and we'll be back in just a minute. And we're back. So we just watched "Bus Max Walk" by Slick Devious. Yeah. Anyone else want to? Got some initial thoughts, feelings, notions. No.
I've been saying this. I mean, I think TriMet just like messed up, by not partnering with Slick after releasing this song. That uh, it speaks to so much and not really taking it on the chin, and realizing that what he was talking about is something that a lot of people in the city feel. And I can't remember if it came out after or before like their ad campaign. Do you remember when they put out like the ad campaign that was like, oh, not paying your fare is like that guy at the bar that always is asking for you to buy his drinks and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah,
I missed that.
they had a whole ad campaign around it, and it was different phrases like this, and Twitter ate them up on it, and so they ended up taking it down. I think some organizations like Opal as well were organizing around it, but sentiments like this are real, because it did start off like kind of funny, where he's just kind of crooning about the views of the city, just taking the trip on the max. But that whole second verse is really just about having to come into contact with these fare inspectors, having to come into contact with potentially the police, the transit police who are armed, and like the stress of that, and I'm a lifelong bus rider. I've come into contact with specifically the fare inspectors, and just like some of them are just like real chill with people, but like they're also some assholes. Like some of them, like I remember there was one time I was riding out to Beaverton. I stayed out there for a while, and like I couldn't find my ticket. Like I could not find my ticket, and I knew I had bought like a whole day ticket, and so the person was like, oh, I gotta write you up. I'm like, okay. So I was at the Beaverton Transit Center, and then I found it. I like literally found it after she had given me the ticket. So I like went and found her and was like, I have my ticket. She was like, you gotta go to court. And it's like, these are the type of issues that a lot of people are encountering, and these type of things can just add up for people, in terms of their day-to-day stresses, but also their day-to-day debts. Like you might get that ticket from TriMet and you might not make your court date, you might miss your court date, and now you got fines on you that you weren't even, you might have forgot about, but it's racking up on you. So yeah, it's I think the song is great because it's like funny in one way, and especially the video, the way he made it is like it's funny, but it's like really getting at so much that is wrong with TriMet systematically. So yeah.
I know that I'm far away, but I think I heard that the transit police will be disbanded or defunded. Is that right? What do you know about that, and how do you think that'll affect kind of ridership?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that disbanding is going to look like. I know as part of the, the defunding effort that people have been laying down, like the gun violence reduction team, which is basically the gang task force that used to be here in Portland, that had been rebranded. They are supposed to be disbanded, and then, like you said, the transit police and one other bureau. But it'll be interesting to track what that defunding effort looks like, and because is it just taking apart of teams, or like where's the data gonna go that all these different teams are in charge of? Like these are all things to kind of keep our eye on, especially since like the campaign that PALF and Unite Oregon and we're leading out here was like a call for $50 million, not 15. I just wonder like what would a $50 million decrease have really meant for like general safety of the community anyway. In terms of ridership, that they're not getting rid of the fare inspectors in and of themselves, they're getting rid of the transit police. TriMet has their own fare inspectors. They're not armed, which, that is a major difference for sure. But I think what's going to affect ridership the most is when they make it free. They make TriMet free. And as much as we've seen a lot of like systemic overhauls, one of the things that's been like the craziest to me is that TriMet's budget or their intake is mostly not based on ridership. That's not their business model. So just knowing that this virus is hitting people's pockets, people still have places that they need to go. And, people are already kind of playing the game like they're not accepting cash at this moment. So you either have to have a physical hop card, or you gotta have the app. But a lot of people are saying, all I have is cash. So they get on for free anyways. And the drivers kind of know, like, people are kind of playing the game. They don't want to have the dialogue. Just make it free. Because what you're doing, you leave it up to individual drivers to have that conversation or not have that conversation. And it just makes it more stressful for everybody because you can end up getting in a hostile dialogue. A lot of drivers, get spit on anyways at TriMet or end up getting assaulted. And it's happened like twice within the last couple weeks anyway, where TriMet drivers have been spit on. And, this virus spreads through, spit. So I think like if you're just talking about general safety and logistics, like without looking at their spreadsheets, it just makes sense to make TriMet free. And I know one board member, I want to say right before the virus broke out, said this is something that they're starting to consider, but I think it needs to be sped up a lot quicker because it just, fare evasion and the policies around it still have like a hold on so many people in the city. And the people who would be evading fare, for the most part, right, they're not going to be people. Like I asked my mom the other day, she's a driver. I was like, how many people do you think that are evading fare make $50,000 or more a year? Do you think, like, she was like, not many, So it's just something to think about.
To that end, though, because you said something earlier when we were talking about the RADS video about the fact that like all the factors that had to come together, specifically like coronavirus, like massive layoffs, everything being shut down. And one of the things I'm wondering with this kind of like moment in time, like we're a lot of the movement in the streets right now is kind of focused on police brutality. But we look at like all these other needs, like such as making transportation free for everyone. During the Democratic primaries, a lot of people kind of started waking up to the idea of universal basic income or UBI, which again, like these jobs aren't coming back in a lot of cases. Like our economy is going to be reshaped, and like we're supposed to, I think, I'm not sure if the timeline has since changed, but like we're saying like in August, there's going to be, maybe by August, I think it's supposed to be like another massive like job loss, relative to what's been happening now, because all of this has been massive. But like, I'm wondering like what part of this is also not like kind of like training people, or not, but what part of this is kind of training people like to mobilize for these other things, mobilize for these systemic changes we're going to need to like get through this time, or to, you know, be even just like solvent as like a society in this moment. Because again, like those jobs are still going to be gone. You know, we're still in the first wave of like infections and everything, and like, you know, it's been out there in, you know, some of these protests, and it's like, but at the same time, you always have in the back of your mind, like, I'm in a crowd of people right now in the midst of a pandemic, like a highly effective pandemic that we still don't know all the information about. And it's like, you know, so this is only getting worse, but is this again, like, kind of like you were saying earlier, it's unfortunate that all these factors have to kind of come together for us to finally make that change. But, you know, even in Oregon, like they were supposed to be going through like phase 1 of reopening and everything, and they had to like cut that back because, you know, just everything that's happening. And
It's
part of me is, yeah, I mean, it's still happening. Like, was it tomorrow they're supposed to be, you know, opening a bunch of stuff back up, and, you know, we'll see. But it's like, is this the moment, or I should not, is this the moment, because that makes it passive. Can this be the moment? Can we make this the moment where it's like, okay, you've shown like you can get out there and mobilize. We're gonna need that energy for all of this, for like people are out here now because like, oh, we got, you know, I think a lot of people care, and then there's some who are kind of there for the show or whatever, but like there's also people who are like, you know, you need that UBI too. You need transportation too. You need, you know, free healthcare. Like, as a society, we need these things. So are we gonna, you know, can we translate that energy to that? So I don't know.
We can. I mean, it's hopefully, I think it'll be interesting as cities start their reopening phases, like how much focus like stays on this, because again, people have been, there's been nothing to do. Like, and there's a pessimistic side of me too about the protests of like, it's been the largest event, you know, to happen since 3 months. Like, just literally in terms of mass of people, this is just the largest event. Summer's been kind of like on hold. So, you know, there's that. So once things start grabbing people's attention outside of, you know, having to pay attention to that, I wonder. But, you know, the optimistic side of me is like, we do have like more openings because more people have been exposed to the levels of which like there's gaps, you know, and it's not just police brutality. It never has been. They just are like the most, you know, visible like protection around so many other problems. You know, protection is the wrong word, but they are designed to protect a lot of the system. Like, so, yeah, I think it's all to be determined. But I think what, like, you know, Dave Chappelle was saying in that 846 special, you know, this one rings a little bit different. This particular moment seems to like ring different, and I don't know how much longer. Like, if people are engaging in like pretty civil dialogue still at this point, like, I don't know if America can sustain another one of these moments, you know, because the myths of what makes this thing tick are like really coming apart for a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of us have already, if you live it, it's not as much of a thing. But even if you do live it, I think there is a level of myth that's all been beaten into us about how this society does and doesn't operate. So yeah, it is kind of our collective choice whether that happens or not. you know. And I think just like we've been talking about, like the work that we're doing is, you know, not to just get super esoteric about it, like we're engaging with these different systems right now. So we're talking to people is like, are you going to make these appointments? Are you going to like shift these policies? Are you going to start paying people for their time? Like, and really come off of these things like at scale and sustain these things and make them policy? Because that's what I think a lot of people don't realize or have chosen not to realize too, is like the things aren't just like, it's not just that a group of people has been mad and oppressed. Like it's been written down for people to be oppressed. It's like the literal policies of this city, state, country, like in these institutions, companies too. Like it's the policy, and then it creates inequities. Like, you know, even when you look at like fair enforcement is a policy. So like if you're saying somebody's just doing their job, yeah, they're just doing their job. And their job is to, when you get on and you don't pay the $250 for whatever reasons, their job is to be oppressive, you know, on you, you know, and then they get paid to do that. And then they can be, you know, punished if they let you go, you know, or if they are acting in a more humane way, because that is not the policy of the institution. So that happens amongst all of the different institutions of the country.
I will say this: we're talking about what's coming down the line. Like, unless, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the like 90-day rent moratorium, that's going to be done at the end of this month. Like, so I'm kind of, you know, people have been saying like, what's going to happen? Like, when some of the people are done after like the 2 weeks or whatever. And that's one of those dates I'm looking at, like July, and saying, so we're reopening for, you know, some people, and we'll see how that works. But again, a lot of people are out of work. You know, we've had a rent moratorium. You know, that's shaky at best, and that's not cancellation. It's not doing anything. What's going to happen in July when, you know, all these landlords are basically set free to evict people, harass people? I mean, some of them, you know, I still get noticed. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, what is coming down the line? Because again, none of this is getting, it's not getting better anytime soon on a systemic level, even if we had, you know, competent leadership at the top, like the federal government, which we don't. So, yeah, kittens and rainbows, right? Uh,
These are some of the questions that I'm really interested in engaging in my work here. I'm a student at Yale Divinity School, and part of, you know, sort of learning what pastoral care is involves deep questions about what is suffering and how to accompany it. And as we look forward into sort of these depths that not only are we currently experiencing new levels of sort of the systemic suffering that coronavirus has brought, but sort of surfacing sort of centuries of pain over and over again in the ways that that's happening, in the way that we have access to technology and each other right now. That like this is a very real need to understand what is happening in terms of our own capacities for suffering and laboring with each other through the pains of what is about to be born. That it isn't going to be super quick. It is going to probably be a very long process. But that's a part of what we are called into being as co-laborers in this movement, in the work with each other, to bear witness to each other's pain and the ways that like we can say we can show up and mitigate that pain. I think earlier, Bruce, you were asking about what else needs to be thought of in when we're, if we need to care for one another well. And I mean, it's obviously all the things, but access to transportation being one very small part of that. Access to food and drinking water, access to safe shelter. What does shelter look like when we're threatened with eviction, when we're threatened with, being unhoused? As a person who's been housed most of my life, that's a very different question that I luckily have not had to consider. But I think at this point and at this place in our economic history, like you were saying earlier, like it's going to take all sorts of motion to really move this revolution forward. And unfortunately, that will involve pain. It will involve suffering. It will involve kind of the ways that things need to kind of break for things to be reborn. And I don't think I think that that's maybe only new to maybe white folks or folks who've not had to consider what it would take before, because the system was working for them.
Indeed.
I would add on that list too, like access to Hennessy, like as a foundational.
This guy. So on that note, I think we're going to get to our last video for the day, which is 360 by Dave B. And yeah, we'll come back and talk about do-rags and all that good stuff. So we'll see you in a minute. And we're back after watching 360 by Dave B. And before we get into the discussion, because we did have a past, formerly our previous name, 106 in Quarantine, we had a past event where we discussed this, and I think we had a video up online. I want to correct something, because I think we were talking about someone having like the gigantic, like, Doctor Strange cape type do-rag. And I think we mistakenly said Billy Porter because, I don't know, when we think of red carpet excellence, we kind of just think about Billy Porter. But it was actually someone whose name I cannot remember right now that was not Billy Porter. So,
all black people.
Oh, man. So, good on us for just poor fact checking here. I could probably look that up because I'm on a computer right now. But anyways, 360, definitely a video talking about one, just obviously waves in black hair care culture. But someone again, initial thoughts, feelings. I'm gonna look up his name because I actually really do want to get that right. So
I was glad to see Dave be embodying, the access to Hennessy in
this guy.
The revolution will be on the 360 video. And I wish Mac was here for this discussion, just because when we had the live discussion a couple months ago with this video, he had the perfect breakdown of the do-rag importance to the culture. But I love this video and how it celebrates black hair. Like it's just like that is what the whole video is about. Just giving the relationship of like the black woman taking care of Dave's hair, the kids, feeling empowered through the hair, all of it is. And we were asking the question in in the live discussion, like, why would somebody have a long do-rag? What does it represent? And, you know, just like Mac was saying, it's because I'm black. I'm just black, you know, that, and that's all it is. It's just a straight up celebration of blackness in every which way. And I remember, you know, we were kids when Eminem was the thing, you know, when he was like the head of all things media and hip hop. Yeah, and he was always wearing a do-rag. Like, and they like this weird thing of like him trying to fit into black culture, you know, because there's no reason for you to wear do-rag. I mean, people wear do-rags not even because they're trying to get waves. It's just like, it literally is just because, you know, I'm wearing it. Like, so obviously that would have been a whole nother level though if Eminem had tried to figure out like some white waves. I think, oh my God.
Don't bring that into the world. Don't do that.
I'm glad he's progressive. I'm glad he's just, you know, he is just a mad white man in his cabin in Detroit that drops like great songs every now and again. Yeah, but no do-rag. No do-rag. It was a good choice.
So I do want to go back to that fact check. The person who actually had the 10-foot do-rag at the Grammys was Guap Dad 4000. And I'm old, so I have, to be honest, I have no idea who Guap Dad 4000 is. I'm sorry. But yeah, so shout out to him. And, you know, also shout out to Billy Porter for doing other things on the red carpet. Again, not all black people look alike. And yes. So
Bob Dylan makes great music though. Well, the songs that I've heard from him, I should say, I've enjoyed them. He has this one like really ratchet song that I love. It's called like Isaiah. Like the beat is crazy. It's just like it's one of the most amazing sonic experiences of late 2019, early 2020. So if I should find myself in a club, perhaps in like 2022 when the world is fully opened up, you know, I look forward to turning up to that song and maybe having like a really long do-rag to go with it and like, you know, customized face mask or something, you know? Yeah, 2020 fashion.
yeah, you have fun with that. I'll see you all in 2025 when I'm certain. Yeah, one of the things this video kind of also, you know, made me think about anyway is like we just recently saw the closing of a, you know, major staple in, you know, Northeast Portland and black business in Geneva's for, I mean, decades and decades. So, you know, when we're talking about, especially during like this pandemic, like the effect on both, you know, just like culture, but specifically like on business and minority owned, black owned businesses, like that was kind of, you know, I think it was only like a few weeks ago. It feels like, you know, every day, Monday feels like a month ago. So it feels like forever. But yeah, that just happened. So yeah. You gotta add something to that.
I mean, like Geneva's, to me, like since I saw that, I was like that there's really not any institutions that are that like culturally important in terms of black Portland that are left outside of like black churches. Like literally, Geneva's is that important. I remember when I did an updated like photo shoot of like the gentrification's weird t-shirts probably like 2 years ago. And you know, I chose to do it at Geneva's. I didn't even go to Geneva's like growing up. That wasn't my place. You know, when I had short hair, I was getting cut at like Kingdom Cuts, or I would go to the Fagans for a cheaper cut because it was the school. the barber school so we could get, cheaper hair. But no, I I went to Geneva's because if we're talking about like Black culture, like that is just like that important. So I wanted to represent it, through being at Mr. Knowles' shop and everything. Yeah, and so him at 89 having to make that decision as COVID was kind of like taking away his business prospects. And, he's obviously business savvy enough to try and navigate the waters, but also like after decades in business at, that particular shop and then decades before that of being in business, having this thing come through and him just kind of saying, all right, enough is enough, type of thing. And calling it like I get it, I get it. And then it's also for like the entire Black Portland, Black Oregon. It's one of those things that is kind of inexplicable, like in terms of what that actual feeling is. I actually have an article coming out on in Hey Neighbor, which is Northeast Coalition of Neighborhoods newspaper, about the closing, but more specific, like, the barbers impact, the barbers and beauticians, because like there's a lot of energy around Mr. Knowles, rightfully so. Just them as independent contractors too, and like them having to, or not independent contractors, but employees, but now having to navigate being in this pandemic and then trying to find employment. And then also like a lot of them, their first thought still through that was like, damn, we're losing Geneva's, like that would like, it's not about a job, it's like, it's Geneva's. And I think barbershops in general, Black barbershops tend to be places that mean a lot, in those ways. I know even again, like me now that I get my hair dreaded and everything, like it's different. I'm not going into the barbershop. I have a woman that does my hair. But even like when I first started selling t-shirts, I went back to Kingdom Cuts and was like, hey, like I got these t-shirts. Can I like just have them on a rack here? And, it's those type of relationships like where you can just like go back and say, hey, can I pop this here? Or I remember when my aunt, she used to have her salon off of 42nd and Killingsworth, and people would, pop in there and, try and sell whatever they're trying to sell. So it's about these hubs of community that get lost and memories that get lost in moments like this too. It even makes me think of that conversation we were having with Cool Nuts, a few weeks ago, where he's talking about the loss of like music, hubs and everything. It's like these places are more than places. They're literally places where people congregate and build memories with each other and relationships with each other. So when these things keep getting closed, it hurts. The great thing is that he did own that building though. And so he's able to pass that legacy on of Black business to several Black businesses now. Kizo the Kitchen, Hana's PDX, and Joe Brown's Caramel Corn. But nonetheless, it's not Geneva's. But they're building off of the same foundation and principles. A lot of them are that Mr. Knowles had.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Is with I remember seeing like just the picture for that news story. And, like if you ever met Paul Knowles, like he's one of the most upbeat, like positive people you will ever come in contact with, despite all he's seen, all he's been through. Like it is hard to just get him into like a negative space. So looking at that picture that they shot for the news story where he's sitting in the barber's chair with the face mask on, and it's like a different, like, I can't describe the weight just from like a purely from like an image standpoint of seeing like the clothes and seeing the darkness of it. Like, again, this is like a whole different vibe from this man who's, he said, 89 years old, has seen Portland, like, seen like the zenith of Black Portland, seen it taken down, experienced all of this. And like, it was like, you finally see this picture where it's just like, it's like it all caught up. And it's crazy. Like, even with me, like, I grew up in Lake Oswego, you know, I had a barber who was at Geneva's for like a year. So that wasn't, you know, I can't say it's like I have, you know, but like a few cuts in there of like memories. But like you said, we all kind of have these connections to these places, these hubs, like, you know, and you watch them go down, you watch, you know, things move. Like, I mean, you know, I'm out in the Washington County area now, so like we got like the Champs over in Beaverton, or Champions Barbershop over in Beaverton. So it's like, oh, hey, we got, you know, something here. It's not driving, you know, a half hour out anytime you want to get a haircut, but like still, like looking at this time right now when businesses are closing, especially like these are the type of businesses that are going to be hit super hard by this just because of like COVID conditions and health precautions. And you're just wondering, so what's going to happen? What's, you know, these hubs of both business, commerce, but also culture and exchange and society, like, are under real threat. Like, it's, yeah, you know, kind of come back to what we're talking about. Things aren't going to be the same again when we come back.
Yeah. It's literally things that are irreplaceable. And even as these phased reopenings happen, you know, people are still taking the hits, you know, and there's been only so much, you know, stimulus money, if you want to call it that have come for businesses, and culturally specific monies that are coming and things like that. But, you know, the amount of reshifting that's going to happen, like, this is like a long-term threat already to the stability of Black Portland and Black Oregon at large, you know. On a lighter sense, you know, of the things though, just like you're talking about being in Lake O, I remember when I went to like OES and stuff, I would do these different things. Like, yeah, I get the little parts in my hair, I do the designs in my head and stuff, and like how much of a reaction I would get from like the kids at my school, you know, like, because I was like one of this many Black folks at the school. So like this was like such a point of conversation for me to be doing something that, you know, I remember the first time I saw my cousin get a part in his head, and I was like, I want to get one of those too, you know, and it's just one of those things that it's just been a thing. And them not understanding why and just having so many questions about why I would do something like that. And it's just like, when you do things that are just like culturally about you, how much people, you know, try and prune and prod into like the basics. Like, I don't ask white people, or I never had the thought of like asking, hey, why did you swoop your hair like that? You know, like, or why did you, you know, like, it's not like a thing. It's just a thing, you know, you're expressing yourself. But that's why it's so important for us to have, you know, those expressions through your hair. Like, it can make such a statement, you know, and a statement that doesn't have to be explained. It's just a part of you. And so, yeah. Yeah.
I feel I didn't do anything particularly adventurous, you know. Like, I blew my hair out for a few games, but not, you know, nothing super adventurous. So I do remember, you know, everyone asking, so what is this FUBU you're wearing? You know, all, all the time. Fun times. So
like the beginning of like All Lives Matter, right? Like FUBU.
Oh God.
Like, for us by us, I mean, but who's us? Why can't it be all of us?
Oh man.
There's a Ricky Lake clip of like this dude being upset about FUBU. He's like, you guys have your FUBU, and you know, I just feel like it's very racist. And shout out to the 90s.
Oh man, but on the bright side now, I don't watch Shark Tank, but I don't know. You got the FUBU director, FUBU founder on like a, you know, he's like a staple of regular TV. So, you know, times are interesting. I know we've been in these conversations where we just want to listen. We want to listen to you. We're listening. Like, I'm not sure how many times, how many more times I hear that before or have you noticed these things where like the code words switch over time? They're very malleable, they're very adaptable. So things that sound all right, you start realizing, oh no, that's just the thing they say now. So like, we're listening, or I want to hear more stories, or you know, I just don't think our town is ready for this. My favorite at any like event is, so what can we do? Like, what can we do as white people? What can we do? Like, I was at you know, Walida and Marisha doing her Black History presentation, which, you know, pretty known institution in Oregon, where she explicitly like both passes out handouts and puts on the big screen a list of organizations led by people of color that you can work with, that you can contact, all the information you could possibly need, because, you know, she's been asked, what can we do every time, only for the Q&A session to come up and like 3 people in a row to just be like, so what can we do? I've had my time. So what can we do? You know, I'm just very confused. So what can I, as a person who wants to be a white ally, I know I'm looking at this list right now. I see it. I have the handout in front of me, but Walida, what can we do? And yeah, I'm not sure if there was a meeting where they decided that that's just like, these are the things. This is like the lingua franca of, I'm trying to kill your blood pressure right now. I don't know, but it feels coordinated. It feels kind of aggressive to me personally. So I would just like to put that out for anyone listening, any of the potential allies. Please just be kind of thoughtful.
Or just read. Just read. This is what you can do.
Just listen.
I was in one of the Dills yesterday, you know, and this dude was, we're looking at Baldwin's, you know, just different Baldwin work, and he had some sentence in there that was effectively saying like, if you're oppressing me, you're oppressed, right? Like there's a joint relationship. And somebody who's white, he's like, I wonder, is this an original Baldwin thought? Or is this like, has this like, did he just have this revelation? And I was like, are you asking if like he was the first human being to realize that if you're oppressing somebody, you're oppressed? I'm like, oh man, like it's like, it's not exactly the same as what you're saying, but it's like these like most baseline kind of like realizations that people like are having for the sake of like, I don't know, just acting like they're having a conversation and just like continuing conversation, when it's like, no, these are baseline things. If something's on the screen and they're saying this is what you can do, this is what you can do. Oh, you're wondering like how to be a human being? Be a human being. Like, like, you already know these things. Like, man, no, people have been saying, it comes from the same like scope of thought as like Black Lives Matter suddenly becoming a movement. It is a movement, but it's not like it just popped out of nowhere. This is like hundreds of years of people saying shit. This is my second time cussing. Sorry, guys. But yeah,
We'll cut it.
yeah, it's all frustrating. You know, it's frustrating when these things are like, I feel like it's an over intellectual. Fuck.
You got this. You got this. Intellectualization. You got this. Go.
You can do this. We believe.
I think my brain has like something missing where I can't say the word. But people are trying to like be over intellectual about the situation that's at hand, you know, and that's where you get those type of questions, because sure, you can like, all right, yes, give to these organizations, might just present it to you like for an hour plus on the state of things. Do more research, you know, do more research on who else is out there. Look at the models that people have been presenting for hundreds of years as to what you can do. Like, you know, but don't keep prodding at people like they're going to give you the answer on how to live your life. Like, you know.
Yeah. Like, you know, Molly, we've kind of, you know, co-hosted some events. And I think one of the things like I really appreciate that you do is just like, you set the guidelines right up front. Like, just because, you know, a lot of stuff I've done is like, it's very largely white audiences because it's, you know, it's Lake Oswego. It's called Lake No Negro for a reason. But like, you will set the guidelines up for like, this is not a space for white tears. And just like, I know you've done like a lot of like, it's kind of like organizing like around in these spaces. And like, I guess, could you just talk a little bit about like how one, you like set the sense of purpose and like get people directed, because I think it's like very important for people to kind of take away as they're looking at this and saying, okay, I'm getting involved, but I just don't know what to do, and people are yelling at me, and being mean now, but like getting people directed and actually like focused and not thinking about, basically not making it about themselves when they get into this.
Yeah. So I think a lot of my framework comes from showing up for racial justice, Surge, and the ways that I was kind of trained there, their value system, and that is to kind of make sure that you're pointing towards Black and people of color led leadership at all times and taking your cues from them, that you are getting out of the way. But definitely figuring out what your resources are and how you can bring them into the situation, and how can you support whatever the action happens to be. Third is showing up for racial justice. So like showing up, you make a commitment to show up, like be there, get in a room, listen, and then do the things. So folks are upset about a million different things. What is it that like calls to you? You know, educators are interested in classrooms and disparities in graduation rates, the ways that, you know, students are diagnosed at different stages of development with different types of things based on their race, based on all sorts of things, school to prison pipeline. You know, if you're interested in the education fields, that's where you might want to plug in, and you might want to, you know, get involved with your school board. You might want to get involved with your parent teacher organization, whatever that is. There's 1,000 different ways to kind of help create the change that you know needs to be seen. And I think for me, that's been useful to connect with people. Everybody is interested. People do want to see a change. They just feel like they're going to be ineffective. And there's a lot of ways that, you know, the lies of white supremacy and white superiority infiltrate, and, you know, white people buy into those often. And so it's calling those lies what they are in the moment, and recognizing them, attending to them in myself and in the room, whenever there's a time where, you know, maybe I think that I have the answer, maybe I think that I might know a thing or two about this. It's a learning process, and there's never a time when you arrive or you know the thing, but there's always use for interested people to engage and show up and continue to learn with and from folks of color.
Molly, can you say more?
This guy. this guy. Oh, okay.
I'm grateful that I know you well enough to know that that was a joke.
Yeah. So we're clearly we're getting off task here.
This is all about 360 by Dave P.
Oh. So yes. Thank you all for joining us today for first episode of the Press Play Northwest podcast, where again we take deep dives into Northwest hip hop's most provocative visuals and veer completely off course in conversation at some point, and then remind ourselves that we were talking about video and a conversation about do-rags. So you can find us all on the social medias. You can put all that stuff in the description box, along with the links to all these videos if you'd like to, watch them and dig deep into the conversation, or dig deeper into the conversation. Yes, we'll have those links in the description. Any parting words from the group here?
Any parting words? I don't know, man. I don't know. Press play on Northwest music. Stay up to date. Where I think, as much as we're having fun with this stuff, I think today was a good conversation. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying words now. I'm just saying words, but yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to. My bad. I was going to say one final thought. I would just, if you heard our radio show this week, we wanted to make sure say shout out to the kids at Jeff for toppling the Thomas Jefferson statue. And with that, I think we're gonna close tonight's episode with that. So good night. Check us, or good afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. Check out more from Press Play Northwest. We're gonna have an email list and social media pages coming. People are kind of caught up in the rebellion throughout the country, so times are busy. But in the meantime, check out your not moment of Zen, because we're not ripping off the Daily Show here. So kittens and rainbows, everyone, and we will see you when we see you.